There is one position in fantasy football that can have the biggest impact in the fantasy playoffs, and it's the one that causes us the most headaches: tight ends. Whether you're building hero RB, zero RB, or even robust RB, hitting on tight end can absolutely change your fortunes. In this video, I'm going to tell you why now is the time to be aggressive at the position, and how if you do that right, you could strike it big in 2024 best ball. In 2022, 6 tight ends were drafted inside the first 6 rounds. In 2023, that number dropped out of 5. And now in 2024, we're up to 7 tight ends taken inside the first 72 picks. The market is telling us that they have more confidence in early tight end than ever before. But that confidence just doesn't extend to the top 2 rounds, with no tight ends being taken there for the first time in 3 years, and only 1 tight end being taken inside the top 36 picks, again, the lowest number in 3 years. The veterans, they're falling, but nobody quite has enough faith in the young, shiny new tight ends to take them really highly just yet. Now, all of the tight ends of this range might have question marks surrounding them, and we'll get into that later. But first, let's talk about why drafters might not be willing to take those tight ends earlier than they are currently. Madison Parkhill wrote recently, no elite tight ends separated in any playoff week in 2023. In weeks 15 to 17, the top elite tight end scored 9.3 points, good for tight end 11, 16.1 points, good for tight end 1, and 7.6 points, good for tight end 16. With 2 horrible weeks and a solid but unspectacular week 16, this was a bad outcome for the elite tight ends and very unlikely. Madison goes on to explain he projected at this as less than a 15% chance. In addition to the poor performance from the elite tight ends, a late round tight end smashed. In week 15, Sam Laporta dropped 26.1 points, which was the 3rd highest tight end score of the season. Laporta posted a semi-finals advance rate of 4.97, which was the 2nd highest advance rate of any player, only behind Christian McCaffrey's 5.64%, in which he scored 39.2 points. In effect, it was the combination of the bad performance by the elite tight ends with the added late round tight end smash that crippled their advance rates. You can read the rest of Madison's incredible article by checking it out in the description below once we finish this video. That lasting memory seems to be having a massive effect on drafters. Travis Kelce disappointed in the regular season, averaging 42 yards and 0 touchdowns per game over his last 4 fantasy-relevant games. But if he'd finished the fantasy season with the stats he put up in the playoffs, would things be different? He went nuclear in the 4 playoff games, with 88.75 yards per game and 0.75 touchdowns per game. Trey McBride was one of the breakout players in 2023. But he finished week 16 and 17 with a combined 79 scoreless yards. That's not helping anyone in best ball. Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson both missed big parts of the season due to injuries. George Kittle had 7 top 5 weekly finishes in 2023, but he also had 7 finishes outside the top 20 tight ends. That is a horrible line to be taking when you're talking about a onesie position. Dalton Kincaid smashed in games without Dawson Knox, scoring 11.12 half PPR points, double the amount he'd averaged in games with Knox. But Knox isn't going anywhere, so even without Stephon Diggs, there's those of us who are skeptical that he can see that kind of crazy role in 2024. Kyle Pitts, yeah. He had Arthur Smith, Desmond Ridder to contend with, so it's easy to be optimistic about a glow-up for him. If he hadn't have had an improved situation, I think Kyle Pitts would have been going around pick 120. And as for Sam Laporta, who had the greatest rookie tight end season of all time, perhaps people are just wary that his touchdowns might regress. Touchdowns are one of the least sticky stats in football. If Laporta had scored 3 fewer touchdowns in line with most of the top tight ends, then his total points and points per game for the season would have dropped him to tight end 4 overall. That's a big difference when you're talking about a player who's being drafted as the tight end 1 for some people right now. So why should we be bullish on these players instead of waiting and taking dart throws later on? Keep watching, we're getting to it. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, hit the subscribe button. We draft on Underdog on Mondays, DraftKings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, constant stream of best ball content, not to mention all the amazing content that Rich is putting out on the Dynasty side of things. The reason we can't ignore these elite tight ends is because of what they can do for us in the fantasy football playoffs. In 2023, Pat Carrain, the winner of BBM3, wrote, "Despite a quiet week 17, Kittle was on my winning BBM3 lineup, as well as the winning FFPC lineup, and interesting, despite it being a total points format, weeks 1 to 17 contest, he was also on the winning drafters lineup. So whether looking at half PPR, full PPR, or tight end premium, and whether looking at the playoffs or total points through week 17, you wanted Kittle on your team last season. This held true in 2023 for Sam Laporta as well. The tight end 1 overall finished as a tight end 5 in week 17. That was a week after finishing as the tight end 37 in week 16. But in week 15, Laporta gave playoff teams in the first round of the best ball playoffs an absolute turbo boost with 26.1 half PPR points, propelling them into the next rounds of the playoffs. Laporta was on both the DK Millimaker roster that won it all and the BBM4 winning team. Much like Kittle in 2022, he'd gotten teams there and then didn't bust when it mattered. Sam Laporta was the only tight end with 2 games over 24.5 half PPR points all season, and both games came after week 12, when teams needed those super-fueled performances to get them into the playoffs and to take them to the big money. 5 different tight ends scored 20-plus half PPR points in 2 or more games last year. Cole Kmet, David Njoku, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, and TJ Hawkinson. Cole Kmet we know is an inconsistent player. He disappears at times, there's no denying it. David Njoku had all his best games with Joe Flacco at quarterback, not Deshaun Watson. The other 3 tight ends though, they all fit the criteria of what we look for in elite tight ends. We know these guys can deliver us those massive week-winning performances. Going back to Madison Parkhill, he wrote this in 2023. My research, albeit only a 2-year sample, suggests that on any given week, there's roughly a 50% chance one of the elite tight ends scores 20-plus points, while a combination of 3 random late-round tight ends offer a 7% chance of scoring 20 points. But it's not just a straight 50-50 bet when we're talking about the 3-game stretch of the best ball playoffs. Instead of one 50-50 bet, we now need to run that bet 3 consecutive times, meaning that over the course of those 3 weeks, there is a roughly 85 to 90% chance of one of the elite tight ends going off. Further to this, Pat Kerrane found that elite tight ends were supercharging roster constructions. Pat went into detail about a number of popular roster construction strategies that got turbo boosted by elite tight end in 2022. And here you can see the most popular. You can see how dual RB beats robust RB in advance rate here, 14.2% to 12.6%. But add in elite tight end. Admittedly, this is mainly Travis Kelce we're talking about in 2022. But by adding an elite tight end, it took the advance rate to a whopping 20.7%. When you're talking about an average of 16.7, that's massive. In 2023, this trend continued to shine through. Zero RB, defining it as no running back before round 6, had an advance rate of 19.2%. But add an elite tight end, one drafted inside the first 2 rounds, and that increased slightly to a 19.4% advance rate. And importantly, increased the semifinals advance rate too. That's what we're really caring about once we've made the playoffs. So even with Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews disappointing last year, those rosters still performed marginally better. As I tweeted about in this thread earlier this year, robust RB works with elite tight end. It's really tricky, but this is how it can work. Selecting your RB3 before round 5 and a tight end 1 before round 5 had a positive advance rate for the 733 teams that threaded this needle in 2023 on Underdog, when they selected 5 running backs total. This isn't the only time it's worked. In 2022, teams that took their RB3 before round 5 and their tight end 1 before round 3 also saw really strong advance rates. These numbers are tiny in terms of the amount of teams doing this each year, but look at how green the rates are. Going back to 2021, the early tight end addition didn't really help. But if you open things up to the first tight end before round 6, again, robust RB drafters could thread a needle. I am not advocating for you to go out and draft a load of robust RB teams. It's a strategy that's filled with pitfalls, particularly in Underdog's wide receiver thirsty rooms. But it's okay to try. And if you stop at 5 running backs with an elite tight end, you can probably get to 9 to 10 wide receivers depending on what you do at the quarterback position, and you're only going to need 2 tight ends total. So we know that elite tight ends can be difference makers. We know that they can crush in the playoffs. So why are they not being drafted higher? Hayden Winks wrote in 2023, going off at tight end means getting 20 half PPR points, while going off at quarterback, running back, or wide receiver means getting 30 half PPR points. And he's not wrong. But the leverage you get on other drafters when your tight end gets 20 points and theirs is getting 11 points, that is still worth chasing. If you're worried about age for some of these guys, it's worth pointing out that in ESPN Open Score, Madison Parkhill found Kelce, Andrews, and Kittle were all still over the 94th percentile in getting open. He also found that those three were also in line with their 3-year averages in yards per route run. These guys aren't toast yet. Mark Andrews is 28 years old. Travis Kelce is 34. And we've just seen one of the most dominant stretches at the onesie position that we've ever seen from Travis Kelce. So if you're fading Mark Andrews because he's 28 years old, it might be time to give your head a wobble. Drafting elite tight ends isn't always foolproof, but it gives us leverage when we need it most. Importantly, these tight ends are nearly all on teams that we expect to be really good on offense. Ben Krellin put together this data using implied odds from DraftKings to show which teams are expected to average the most points over the fantasy playoffs. 6 of the top 7 most expensive tight ends are inside the top 10, and 5 of them are inside the top 6. Betting on these offenses, it feels like good process. In summary, to quote Corain one last time, it's pretty clear that elite tight ends offer something you cannot readily find from tight ends later in the draft: a realistic shot at a season-defining, multi-week run in the fantasy playoffs. The articles referenced in this video from Pat Corain and Madison Parkhill are in the description below, and I highly recommend reading them both in full. If you want more best ball strategy tips, check out this video here, 10 minutes on how to win at best ball. Hit the like and subscribe button. Come back Mondays for Underdog drafts for myself and Tyler. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for DraftKings drafts. Loads of Dynasty content on here. Loads of special guests who give you great opinions. We'll be back soon.